And welcome again to the Giggles to Gold show, where we are laughing our way to success and family bliss. And the great thing is that success and great family bliss starts in there, in our mind. So mental health is very important. And as adults, we are brought up in a certain way, which defines quite a bit of our mental health. So today I have a super guest who can talk about how do we do that with kids? Because of course, we are the example for them, but kids are also our future. So Mansee Gupta, basically from India, but she will tell you how she went around the world and where she's now. So it's
Thank you
your
so
floor,
much.
Mansee.
Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I'm basically a trained counseling psychologist from India. Then I worked after my training. I worked in India for almost 9 years, and then I moved to UK. And in UK, I was working as a senior mental health practitioner in National Health Services (NHS) in child and adolescent mental health. And it was a brilliant experience because I was working with moderate to severe mental health difficulties within children and adolescents, but also, working alongside with the parents. So it was a very nice experience. I got trained in something called DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, which helps in managing emotions and regulating emotions in children and people. So that was quite interesting as well, working with parents and children and teenagers using those kind of evidence-based therapy. And then I relocated to Norway this year. So February 24 this year, I relocated to Norway. And then March, April this year, I started my own private practice. So I usually work with uh, my clients and my patients are usually from UK as well as Norway.
So a lot of
That's my
online
journey.
work too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is very interesting because you worked basically in several countries now with kids, with mental health. What is your, I'm kind of curious with that. Is there a difference in culture, how they go around with either mental health and raising kids, which works on mental health?
Oh, such a lovely question. There's a massive difference, especially when you come from the Eastern culture, the Eastern side to the Western world. I think there's a massive difference. So when I
Yeah.
moved from India, and after living in India for 30 years, you have your own strong cultural values and morals and stuff. And then coming to UK and working with children and that society, it was a quite difficult or a different task for me. So in terms of I had to naturally safeguarding did not come to me. So I had to train myself. I had to kind of be more aware of certain things, like certain sort of things are so culturally different. So I just had to kind of manage and understand more about that from the British culture as well, and working there. Then coming to Norway, that's another different cultural experience as well, and it's brilliant about how in Indian culture, I from my personal experience could say that it's more like a family oriented or a more like a protective environment, whereas I've seen in the British culture or the Western culture where children are encouraged to be independent actually, and encouraged to take decisions on their own. So, for example, a small example would be usually in India, the pattern is education is important. So, you have to complete your education, and then the focus would be on getting a job or employment. But then I've seen in the Western culture how children or teenagers start working from 16, 17 years old. And that gives them that freedom as well as that independence, but also that decision making, which I think is so important in terms of your confidence, self esteem, as well as your overall growth and development.
Yeah, yeah, I love that because I moved like a long time ago. I went from the Netherlands to the United States, and I thought like, hey, it's all Western
Yeah,
country. Well, what
yeah,
is the Western country?
yeah.
But man, was I wrong. It was, I mean, there's nothing wrong, but it's so different. And then you have to get used. Yes, you take your own values, your way of living. There are rituals, well, all kind of things, and a different country is a different culture.
Mhm.
So I don't think no matter where you're going, it will be different. So the way we raise kids then will be different too. Like you just said, with in the teenage time, well, either start working or you're protected or you study, things like that. What are the values there? So what are basically the things you encounter most as problems in teenagers when we're talking about mental health?
I think the number one issue growing now is, which is so hard for teenagers, I think, is the impact of social media.
Yeah.
Because along with that comes that bullying, the peer pressure, or how strongly that is linked with self-esteem as well, and your confidence level. Because it
Yes.
is that urgency or the need to kind of reply or comment on a post. Because if like my friend does not comment on my post, so as a teenager, I feel quite pressured, and then I would then move into my negative thought process about, oh, this person does not like me, doesn't want to be friends with me, and it just pushes me into that negative cycle, making me feel so stressed up, overwhelmed, and anxious about the whole situation. So I think that is really a number one issue. And I think children being on their gadgets and
Yeah.
on the social media kind of gives a lot of stress and anxiety to parents as well, because they are not sure how to manage that and how to deal with that.
Yeah, because we are not brought up with that.
No,
And we
no,
still
it's
have
so
to accept
different.
it. It's
Yeah,
very different. And we see also the result. I mean, if I see a group of young people being together, at least half of them are having contact via this with other people who are not there. And
correct.
they're not communicating together. So that whole group feeling, having the energy of learning basically to feel the energy of the other person also just when they're nearby. I mean, those are all qualities that we are, well, the youth is not learning anymore, not putting attention to either, because the attention is right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can
And I
see
think
that. Yeah, go ahead.
And sorry, I was just saying that that kind of really affects communication, the family bonding, the communication, because even though when they're sat for a dinner or something, people are either into their phone or television, and just that conversation is kind of missing. So even though you go for a walk to a lovely place, or just like on a beach, or like on just walk to like a lovely lakeside place, but people are still on their phones, teenagers are still on their phone, and that kind of creates that gap between them and the parents in communication.
Yes, even I encountered that, even though for my kids, all this social media started when my youngest was, I think, like 10, 11. So in their first years, they weren't even brought up with it, but how fast they were hooked to it. And I mean, for me, there are no phones allowed at the dinner or whatever eating table. But it's really hard, even though they know it, to really have that phone somewhere else and be here. And but the great thing is too that they then say like, it's so great. We really are together
Mm,
now.
that's true.
So my son was telling me, and maybe you hear more about that too. He was having a place where every once in a month for a week he had to go there. I don't know how you call that in English. From his school, he had to stay there and work there with a whole group of people in the military, and there were no phones allowed. So they realized that
Mm,
the impact of that phone was really huge and that they also encountered like, wow, having real social contract is even great. We are having fun together. And so they had a discussion about that, how they realized how much the phone really decreases a lot of good things. But still, when they go home, they
they
still
have it.
picked it up and do it. So
Yeah.
what is your opinion? Do you hear also, because I do hear more people, youth, teenager, young
Yeah.
adults, about the impact that it's not good and that they don't like that, but they still do
Mm.
it. What do you hear about that or encounter?
So I encounter the same thing in my line of work, and especially I see that strong link with the mental health as well. So just talking about basic life skills, I would like to talk something about digital soothing. So digital soothing is something that you must have noticed that even when a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or even a teenager is upset or angry, the parent would give the phone, or the child or the teenager would just take the phone, scroll on TikTok, on social media and stuff like that. Um, so what usually happens when a child is angry, irritated, bored, they don't know how to first of all, I think they don't know how to identify these
True.
difficult feelings and emotions. They don't know how to they don't know how to identify, they don't know how to deal with these emotions. But what tends to happen is they are using gadgets for soothing themselves. That is what is digital soothing. So they would, if they're angry, if a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old is angry, instead of expressing it or talking about things or dissolving the anger or working on the feelings and emotions, they would take their electronic gadget or phone and use that to calm themselves down. Same thing happens with a teenager. Now, because of this, what is happening is because of digital smoothing, these children are not learning about how
Yeah.
to manage their anger, feelings,
True.
and emotions. And that makes them more likely to have mental health difficulties as well. Because, for example, this anger piles up and then it kind of turns into fear or anxiousness or, overwhelming. And these children and teenagers have no idea how to deal or manage with that because they have not learned it or they have not
Yes.
experienced it. So I think this is a massive gap in terms of basic life skills about how to deal and how to manage these emotions, which are common and which are part of human behavior. These emotions will happen. You will experience anger. You will experience difficult emotions, but how to deal with that? Crying,
Yes.
yes, it is a normal thing. So just because you don't want your toddler or child to cry, you give him the phone to
Yeah.
stop them from crying and deal with the tantrum. But what message are they learning? What is happening for their overall growth and development?
Yeah, it's really teaching them not to feel emotions anymore, but just really have the distraction, and then especially on a screen.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
never deal with them, and that is a big problem because when I use my scan, the Balanced Mind Body scan, where we can see like the deepest beliefs, a lot of times in the scan, we can see there's so much anger there in the body. And people don't, they're like, I don't recognize that. I never feel angry. No, but it's there. You just
Yeah, yeah,
stuffed it far, far away. So, and even when they're
yeah.
angry, what do parents mostly say? Like, you're not supposed to be angry. Be quiet. Go to your
That's
room.
so.
Things like that. Instead of give them the chance
Yeah,
to let it out.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
what do you do with your clients, the teenagers, the kids, to change those mental health, yeah, problems around?
So I strongly believe in having that communication or learning some emotional management strategy. And I think that comes from parents as well, because parents need to have those skills and strategies, and then they need to teach or inculcate those to their children as well. Because you are role model as parents, and if you are not following those techniques and strategies, how are your children going to learn those things? So it's very important to kind of you as an adult to have those skills. And I think so, as you mentioned, some parents or some adults in that case are quite invalidating and very dismissive of their child's emotions, which also probably could be the trauma that they have experienced or the mental health difficulties they might be having or the difficulties they must be experiencing now or must have experienced as a child. So it's very important for parents to understand about their own emotions and teach
Yes.
those things. So one basic one is something called like a grounding technique, which is something called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which I think is brilliant. It's one of my favorite technique because that is something you can just use it anytime. You don't have to be just indoor or outdoor. You can use it. So it's basically 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is it gets in terms of it helps you to be in touch with your sensations and helps you to be in present, which is part of being mindful as well. So it kind of cuts off or tells your brain, okay, let me not think about this negative thoughts, that's kind of increasing my anxiety. Let me think on the present or let me be more grounded and aware of it. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 basically goes like five things. So just spot or name five things that you can see around you. 4 things that you can touch. So that's your tactile as well. Then 3 things that you can listen or hear at that time, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste in your mouth, something to do with taste. So that's how using
Love
this
that.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it just kind of brings you, makes you grounded and keeps you in present. And I think that is so beautiful, just to kind of stop from those negative emotions escalating as well. So parents can
Yes.
try that, and they could kind of make it a game as well. So with younger children, they can be like, okay, what are the 5 blue things you can spot in the room? Which are the 4 red things you can spot in the room? Or what are the 3 green things you can go and touch? So as you kind of convert that into some sort of a game, or a different technique, it just kind of works a lot for parents and children as well.
And the great thing is, if you teach it to your kids, they know that for life,
Yeah.
and they can
And the
bring
best
it.
part is doing it together. I think that's best, because you are doing it, you're regulating and managing your own emotions. But you're also in that as a role model, teaching your child that yes, you do get this anger, you get this tearful emotions, but it is manageable, and it is, you can work it out. This is how you can deal with these things.
Yes, I love that technique. I didn't know it yet. I know it in a slightly different way though. But yeah, I know what the effect is, that
Mm,
it really calms you down, it brings you in
yeah,
the now, and then the perspective of whatever the fight or the anger was about is completely different.
yeah,
So yes, as a
absolutely.
parent, we are so much the example for our kids. So I can see that you say, like, occasionally I'll work with the parents too. I do it the way around. I work with the parents and then indirectly work with the kids
Yeah,
because they're an example. So we're a good
yeah,
match in that case.
yeah.
So we were also talking, we had this nice saying before we started this podcast. I wrote it down. Take things as they are and deal with
Mm,
it, and you
mm.
bring yourself, and that's your power. So 2 different sentences. What are your thoughts about? Let's first take the first one. Take things as they are and deal with it. What?
I think it is so important, because life will throw things at you. I strongly believe that life is never going to be linear and happy. You're not always going to be happy. Things are not always going to be pleasurable and just the way you want. So things will be difficult. What is important is trying to work things around it. It's like life gives you lemon, make lemonade. So yes, if you are in a difficult situation, yes, it is hard, but who are the people which will help you or guide you through that? Do you need professional help? That will probably come at a later stage if somebody is really struggling with their mental health difficulties. But who are your immediate point of contact? Who are those supportive people? Who is that supportive network for you? So for a teenager, is somebody in school that they can reach out to, like a senko, or like a head teacher, or a teacher, somebody, or some family member, or some parent that they can talk to. So who is that supportive network, and how can they be guided, and what are the skills and techniques they could learn? I think that is very important, because things will be difficult for them, and the things that they learn will is like a lesson for life.
Yeah, and I also think that if we learn to deal with
Mm.
problems, that at a certain moment they're not as big as a problem anymore because we
It's
have
because of
found our way.
acceptance. It's
Yeah,
because of acceptance, isn't it?
yeah,
And a lot of people have that difficulty as well, that they are dismissive or they are in denial. And that is where the problem escalates, because they think, oh, anxious, no, I'm not anxious, or low mood, depression, no, I don't have that. So people are immediately
yeah,
dismissive about that. And that could be part of culture as well, that they don't want to
true,
acknowledge about the mental health difficulties they're experiencing. Or it just could be that they don't want to go in through the whole process about seeking help and support. So it could be denial or dismissiveness as well. So having that acceptance that yes, I'm feeling anxious, yes, I am having these difficulties, what can I do about it? Who are the people I can go and take support? Do I need professional support? Do I need people just around me? Maybe just talking things out with your mom or father, or your friend or your cousin
true.
or somebody might just work. It just probably sometimes venting things just kind of helps.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a nice one because I always tell people you have a choice. what you do with it. It doesn't
Mm.
matter what culture there is. It doesn't matter what life circumstances were, are, will be in your mind. All is that you have a choice what you
Mm.
want. And how difficult the situation always is, it doesn't matter. Even then, you have a choice. Am I going to deal with it? Am I going to accept it simply? Am I just, for a moment, going to be really mad and scream about it? So get the emotion out. There is a choice. There's also a choice to think around, what can I get out of that? What is my lesson in this? Those are also questions we can ask in a moment like that.
Absolutely. Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, and that is how we learn to deal
Mm.
and have basically a better time. Because if you deal with it, I believe that we get things on our
Mm.
way, people and
Yeah.
situations, because we have to learn something. So if the moment we really know how to deal with it, we don't have to learn that anymore. So
Mm.
then the situation is not really coming on your path
Mm.
anymore either. So.
Mm.
And then the other one was you bring yourself, and that's your power.
Mm.
What are your thoughts? What kind of nice thoughts do you have about that?
I think it is very important because this sentence also shows me a lot of confidence that if you bring yourself, you feel that confident, I guess, you know. So I think this is very important to have that and to believe in yourself that yes, I am in a difficult situation. I will work things out rather than just giving up or thinking I'm no good, or, slipping into that low self-esteem thing. I just think believing yourself and having that confidence really, really matters.
Yeah, because the thing is that it's easier said than done for a lot of people.
Mm.
Believe in yourself.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
a client this morning. He said, "I know it all. I just don't believe it, and
Mm.
that's why I keep getting in trouble."
Mm.
So I was like, okay, we have to work on
Mm.
believing
Yeah.
yourself, our
Yeah.
intuition, our
Yeah.
our power. So learn to be in your power and to trust
Mm.
yourself, to
Mm.
appreciate and
Mm.
especially love yourself. But that's a hard one for a lot of people, because how many people do you encounter who are not really being themselves, but trying to be the perfect person for the others so they get accepted? How many
Yeah.
times do you see
Self-pleasing.
that?
Yeah, so many, isn't it?
Yeah.
Self-pleasing people. Yeah, they want to please others and they kind of sacrifice a lot of things and let go of a lot of things as well. So yes, you do come across that. And there could be some sort of trauma or experience that they must have experienced in their life that they feel that need of pleasing. And that is one of the anxiety response as well. So it's very important for people to, if they are kind of into that mode, it's important to kind of dig a bit into their life and check what's going on or what really happened as well.
Yeah, because I mean, if we feel insecure and have a low self-esteem, that's where we really have problems like perfectionism, like really imposter syndrome.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of those kind of things, fear of failure. I mean,
Yeah,
just a few to
yeah,
name. There's so many more results from low self-esteem,
yeah.
but low self-esteem is also part of our bringing up,
Mm.
how we got
Yeah.
treated. So, what would be for you tips to a parent to basically bring their kid up with more self-confidence?
I think if you're talking about younger children, it is
Yes.
very important to for the younger children to have competence to do the life skills or to do the skills on them by themselves that will give them the confidence. So if there is a younger child who is, say, 6, 7, 8 year old, so they need to learn, have the competence of doing a task rather than me just saying, oh, well done, excellent. So yes, the verbal praises, of course, plays a very important role. But what will give the child confidence is being able to do the task. So for example, cycling. Cycling is hard for somebody who's trying to cycle or learning to balance. But instead of me just saying, oh, you're going to be an amazing person, you're brilliant, or you will know how to cycle, you will learn that. Uh, those verbal praises, yes, it's going to encourage and motivate them, but that's not going to help them to
No.
cycle. What they need is actual skills. So once the child actually learns, falls down a couple of times, bruises, gets hurt, when they learn the skills, when they are competent enough, that will give them the confidence as well to
Yeah.
have the things.
And not get mad when they fall. Like, oh, you're so stupid, you never can learn it. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm kind of
Uh,
like,
yeah,
what?
just putting that in context of mental health. So if a child is angry and having tantrums, but the child coming and talking and expressing that, I'm angry, I'm feeling this, I feel like throwing things, kind of coming and talking and communicating about that,
Yes.
and then giving that appreciation that I'm so glad you came and spoke to me about it. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
told me that you're angry with your friend or about something. That communication is so helpful because then it gives the child the message that yes, when I'm angry, instead of throwing tantrum or throwing things around, I can come and talk about it, or this is the way I can deal with it.
Yes.
So I can distract myself, I can count to 10, count 10 to 1, backwards. I can do other things as well to distract and manage my anger instead of behaving in a certain way. So that confidence that, yes, I know how to deal with my anger, or I know two things at least what I can do when I'm angry rather than being lost. So that will give the person the confidence eventually, just putting that in terms of mental health.
Then what are your thoughts about living that anger, but then in a controlled way? If
Mm.
they're really angry, to give them, like, I know with my son, I would give I had two ways. One of them was like paper, like old
Yeah,
paper. He could just
yeah,
ripping it, and
yeah,
at a moment like that, for me, he
yeah,
was allowed to say everything that
yes,
usually is not allowed, just to
yeah,
give it a voice and to have the physical movement. And the other one was, I don't call it a box ball or something.
yeah.
He
The
could box
punching bag, yes,
same
yeah.
thing. So what about that? What do you think about that? Because that is anger letting out.
Yes, those are good ways as well. The another way, just to, along with the first one that you mentioned, is I would ask children to kind of scribble. So
True.
holding a pen and just scribbling it. So you can take any paper, any newspaper or something, and literally scribble to an extent that the paper is torn. It's all
Yep.
right for that. And you don't have to hold the traditional way. You can kind of hold the pen like that and
It's,
literally scribble it. Yeah, it's okay. It's
yeah.
okay. And also, I think another thing they can do is they can kind of just drink water and do some breathing as well, because I think that kind of helps a lot, just kind of managing their anger also. Because yes, physically, yes, you can display the anger by these items, but also like physical other activity would be just to run, or if they want to pace, if they want to pace in a room or go up and down the stairs, that's another thing they can do. And I would kind of then encourage them to use some breathing exercises. And for children, you can have like some attractive breathing things also, which includes like just tracing your finger and breathing in a certain way. So
Yeah.
those things could also be, yes, you're managing your anger, but you're learning that next time when you're angry, how can you manage your anger? What can you do regarding it? So
Yeah.
the basic thing is when they feel those difficult emotions, instead of dismissing it, to let them know that yes, these are normal human emotions. Everyone has those.
Yes.
We all experience those. So these are not bad, but what you can do when you have these difficult emotions, how can you manage, that is important. And with my work with children, I always tell them that we humans have this anger anxiety, but animals have that as well. Somebody who has a dog or a cat would know that there are certain times when their dog or cat would get anxious or get angry or show that love. So animals have those emotions as well,
Yeah.
and it is such a normal response.
Yeah, it belongs to us. Emotions
Yeah,
belong to us, and they are a message. Something is going on that needs
yeah,
attention.
yeah,
That's how I look at it. I always had
yeah,
fun when my kids, like, when they came out school, we always would sit at the table with the fruit and something to drink. And then sometimes they would come home and then they had like blah, 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 all these frustrations from the school, things that happened. And what I did also sometimes, and they loved it, was I would put my watch and I would say like, okay, not together, one by one. I would say like, okay, 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes and you have to tell me everything. You can use all the words, but get it all out. Just keep going. You have 2 minutes, so fill those 2 minutes. They never could fill the 2 minutes. After like 30 seconds, they would go like, what? And I would go like, oh, come on. And I would feed it basically.
Yeah.
And weird enough, we always ended up laughing.
Mm. Yeah.
Just because they had to go for 2 minutes, but at a certain moment they don't know anything. And then I
Yeah.
would put this little smile on my face,
Yeah.
and then they would start laughing also. And
Yeah.
it was out, it was gone. So, but they knew those words, they are usually not allowed. They are usually not allowed. So they wouldn't
Yeah.
do that either. But in a moment like that, they could. And I just seeing that getting it out would really put them in a relaxed state again where they could think. Because a lot of times they would then look back and like, basically it wasn't that bad, things like that. So
Yeah.
they suddenly can think again.
And what you're saying is so right because it is so important for children or teenagers to have that safe space to come and talk about things. If they don't
Yes.
feel safe, if they don't feel loved or connected, that kind of leads to another sort of mental health issues as well. And they feel disappointed or rejected in themselves. And that is another thing that would affect their self-esteem as well. So having that safe space and a person basically to come and talk about these things, emotions and their feelings or what's happening. I think that's a brilliant thing a adult or a parent could provide for their child.
But what if the parent never learned this themselves and really feel this right away themselves also? How can they then still be the great example? What
Yeah,
would
I
be a
think
tip for them?
that would be very difficult, isn't it, for parents who are struggling with their own mental health issues and going through their own difficulties or trauma. So I think in case of that time, I think it would be very helpful for parents to learn certain things also, how they can manage their emotions or just kind of cutting down to like, okay, my child is, for example, taking your same example, my child has come from school. We have like half an hour together, half an hour, I'm just going to focus on my child and pay attention to their needs and stuff like that, and then I'm going to go back and then deal with my own stuff, or just kind of breaking things down, because if kind of spending a lot of time with the child becomes quite overwhelming, you can chunk it down, break it into chunks and just think, okay, I'm just going to spend another 10 minutes, another 20 minutes or half an hour with them and kind of manage that. But of course, if a parent is really struggling with their emotions and stuff, they might need some mental health support if they're really struggling, because then that's not helpful for them and for their
Yeah.
children as well. And I strongly feel that to help and support your child and for them to grow as a parent, as an adult, you need to be a strong pillar. So for you to be a strong pillar, you need to look after yourself and you need to kind of put self-care, or you need to look after yourself and put that self-care into place, because if you are not a strong pillar, how can you look after them? How Because they're going to look up to you as role models, and if you are being weak and if you are struggling, they are going to absorb all of those things,
Yes,
which is not going to be good for their mental health and their upbringing as well.
definitely. Yep. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm glad because I mean, I work with women mostly, and I really love it that very regularly they come to me because their first encounter with themselves basically is that they feel I am not the great example for my kid. I have issues that I cannot be there for my kid. I have a short fuse. I don't have the patience, and I don't want that. I want to bring my kids up in a different way. Want to bring them up. Well, that's Dutch English,
Mm.
but but yeah, they more and more women start, and I don't know about men. I'm not working too much with them, but more women are getting aware of their role, being a role model,
Mm.
and they want to do it in the right way. They see that there's too much anger, frustration, fear, and they don't want to be the example for their kids to let that grow in them. So I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
What let me think, how will I frame that? What issues do you see mostly between parents and kids?
Um, I have noticed a lot of boundary issues between
Mm-hmm.
parents and kids, and lack of communication as well. Those are the issues I've basically noticed. And in terms of boundaries, it's, I think, a very normal thing as well. Because when a child is teenager, they would want to test a parent and they would want to push all the boundaries. I think
They
that is
need
just
to.
how, that's how I think the teenage brain works. So along with mental health, there are a lot of behavior issues as well that would happen in children. And I think it is always important that, if you set a rule, they will try to break it. They will try to test your patience and stuff, which is a very normal thing. So I think it's very
Yep.
important to have less rules, but certain firm rules. And I think it's also very important for parents to, choose their battles. Because if there are five rules and, the child is going to try and test you and try to break all the five rules, but you have to then pick your battles and choose which one you have to give priority as well. And just kind
Yep.
of having that frank conversation as well, that okay, probably some sort of negotiation as well, that okay, I am feeling like this because you've not
Yeah.
respected me, or so I think having that frank conversation about a parent expressing to the child that this is how I feel, and also trying to get that information from the child. How exactly is the child feeling? What is happening? What is making the child rebel? And what is it? Are there some practical difficulties in kind of doing some household chores, for example, or the rules that were set? What is it the child is facing difficulty? What is it the parent are facing difficulties with? And is that a negotiation they can do? Is that
Yep.
a something they can come to a midpoint? What
Yep.
is it? What conversation can they have to sort of agree and disagree and come to a midpoint and get 50% of both the things done? So I think having that conversation is, I think, very, very essential. And I think sometimes what also helps is giving children the authority. Now, this might sound wrong, but what I want to say is ask authority in terms of asking the teenager for a suggestion or asking them for
Yes.
solution. That, for
Definitely.
example, you have to load the dishwasher. You tell me what time are you going to do it. I want it to be done before 9 p.m. It is 4 o'clock right now. I would want you to do it by 7:30 or 8 o'clock. You tell me what can be done. So, in this sense, you're kind of superficially giving them the authority of taking decisions. And, because they love that. Teenagers love to be in authority and control, and they like the decision. So basically, the choice is not whether you want to do it or you don't want to do it. The thing is, you basically
Yep.
have to do it.
Yes.
The concept now we're discussing, or the solution, is when you want to do it. So you kind of have a time frame from what, 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock. I would want you to do it 7:30, 8 o'clock. You tell me what is better, and also tell me what are the difficulties, why you won't be able to do 7:30 to 8 o'clock. And is there something that we can work it out? Is there something that we can solve the thing? So kind of having that negotiation, that conversation, and asking them for solution probably might also help in that situation.
Yeah, I think that even can start with smaller kids. I did that with my kids when they were much smaller, like
Yeah,
4 or 5 years old already.
yeah.
And another thing, and I like you mentioned more about that too, the negotiation. For me, it was like I learned, I don't know more, I don't anymore through what, but that if I would say no, they would ask me something and I would say no, they were allowed to ask me again. And a lot of people then, when I say that, they look at me like, huh? And I'm going, yeah, the first time we answer a lot of times just automatically. We
Mm,
don't think
mm,
why, or is it really something that is okay at this moment, or did my child grow up and can I change the rules? Is it that time or whatever? So I always said, like, you can ask again. And
mm,
then I start thinking about the question. And if
mm.
I did say no, then it was a real no. And they knew they would not ask a third time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would really, if they were kind of like, this is weird that she's saying no or something,
Mm, mm,
then they would ask again. And regularly my answer would change, but I also would say like, oh yeah, you're bigger now, or hey, we have more time now, or whatever.
Yeah,
Let's say they never may have an ice cream, but now it's very hot. Now you can have an
yeah,
ice cream, you know?
yeah,
So, and that really worked very well as well. And that is
mm,
also negotiation, I think,
yeah,
because
yeah,
then
yeah,
they would say like, yeah, but, or explain something. Yeah, they need to also think themselves about solutions, because
yeah,
when they get older, they have to find their own solutions in life. So we better teach them that
yeah.
already very
And
small. Do that.
that helps in having that confidence as well, and
Yes,
taking the independent decisions also. And ultimately, the another side for that is facing your consequences. So, what
yes,
choices, decision you're making as a child, as a teenager, as an adult, you have to take the consequences as well that come along.
yep. Yeah, there are consequences definitely to whatever you
And
say, do,
parenting is
or
hard.
yeah, everything, everything in life has
Parenting is hard,
consequences.
whichever stage you are, you have challenges of those stages as well.
There
So
you
I think
go.
parenting is the hardest job in the world.
That's what I think too. That's the greatest job, but it's also
Yeah,
the hardest job.
yeah,
So really, Mansee, this is really great information. Because we are already going on for like 45 minutes, I think,
yeah, yeah.
about. So I want to bring this to a closure. I think you say it like that. And but you had a really great giveaway. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so I've just put something together which is like a 5 minute anxiety relief toolkit. So, which is brilliant, which is just, it's just like 20 pages. So it's not like a massive read. I've made it very super easy that even teenagers can read, and parents can definitely read. So it's basically has couple of breathing exercises, grounding techniques, some sort of affirmation, and all of these things you can use. Couple of coping techniques and strategies that you can use when you are feeling anxious. And the best part about these is you can, as a parent, you can do it on your own, you can do it with your child, you can do it together. So these techniques and strategies are something you can do to manage your stress and anxiety and kind of avoid it from escalating and increasing. So it's definitely like everything packed up together.
That is very great. Yeah, the link for that download is underneath the YouTube video. So feel free to use it. And if you want even more contact with Mansee, then her links, everything will also underneath. And is there, my last question, what is your biggest tip for, and you can choose or both, kids, teenagers, parents, that you can give them?
My biggest tip is, I think, just communication, spending time. And I think parents, children, I think together as a family, you need to just design or have 13 minutes, no gadget time. When none of you are on your phone, just 13 minutes. If 30 minutes sounds massive because everybody is sort of too much on their social medias and phones and something, literally start with 10 minutes and let those 10 minutes be me time or our special time, that what is it that you want to do in just those 10 minutes without any technology and stuff. So it shouldn't be like, oh, let's watch a movie or a series together. No, what is it
Hmm.
that those 10 minutes you can do together? So you can play a game or cook something, go for a walk. What is it? So I think those sort of things will really be helpful for any age group, and just it's just building those relationships and bond. And I think we humans are social, and we are social animals, isn't it? So we need people around us, we need that bonding. So I think that is very important, to have a very good communication. Yeah. So
I
having those
love
times
that.
will be really helpful.
Yeah, quality time, basically.
Quality time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. I love it, Nancy. I had a great talk with you, and I hope for all the parents, but also teenagers listening to this, if you have, that you had a lot of tips out of that, that you got more information to think about. We mentioned several exercises you can do, so please feel free to try them out. And well, yeah, take it all with
Thank you.
you and make sure you're gonna create a great life, laugh through it, and make it successful with a lot of family bliss. Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Mansee.
Thank
And
you for having me. Thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you.
thank you. And I
Thank
was
you.
very glad you were here because this topic is very important. So,
Okay.
okay, I want to thank everybody and I would like to say till next time. Bye.